Imagine the scene. A family conflict about to explode in a true battle for space, where each square meter turns into disputed territory. This was exactly the absurd proposal that a woman, used to imposing her will without any ceremony, played at the table with the naturalness of those who ask for a glass of water. Let's change an apartment. I move to your three-bedroom new, and you occupy mine, where my daughter, son-in-law, and three grandchildren already live, he said, as if offering an invaluable favor. Audacity, stunning. The lack of tact, disconcerting. Good night, listening friends. It is a pleasure to receive them here, in our story space that life writes with a heavy hand. Today, I have prepared an account that will leave them between indignation and nervous laughter because sometimes reality surpasses even more creative fiction. Accommodate. Marina Klimova never had sympathy for the upstairs neighbor. It was not hate. It was that silent dislike that grows up with each roof crash because of too noisy steps or with a passive anti-comment on the smell of food that, according to her, assaulted her imported perfumes. So when, on a cold night of January, the intercom played, and there was Regina Arcadievna Simonian impeccable, with a hair in a perfect bun, nails made by hands that charged more than Marina's minimum wage, and a skin coat that cost the equivalent of 6 months of hard work, Marina's body was already preparing for the worst. Good night. Neighboring, sang the woman, with a smile that didn't come to the eyes, while wrying her feet on the carpet with the intimacy of those who already considered the owner of the house. Aren't you going to invite me to get in? Tea, maybe. The question was rhetorical. Regina was already pushing the door with her hip, as if the invitation were mere formality. Marina took a deep breath and retreated, releasing passage. Entre, he said, as he mentally calculated how long he would take to get rid of the unwanted visit. There was still a report to finish before midnight, and the children would arrive from school in less than an hour. There was no time for the whims of a woman who treated the world as her particular fief and dot, sitting at the kitchen table where Marina served tea and cookies more for the education than for hospitality. Regina began her monologue with the delicacy of a tractor in a crystal store. How are things around here? He asked, as his eyes ran through the environment with the disdain of those who evaluate a renovation property. And your daughter? The son-in-law? The children? Okay, thank you, said Marina dryly. And with you? It was then that the neighbor's face illuminated, as if a spotlight had been triggered on her. Ah, my dear, I have wonderful news. My son presented me with a three-bedroom apartment at Residential Lazuli. Do you know that? By the river, with a private park, the underground garage, and 24-hour security. Marina knew. It was that. Luxury condominium where the apartments were not sold. They were granted to those who could pay for extra zeros in the price. Congratulations, he said, sincere, imagining the relief that would be for the entire building if that woman finally moved. I change myself next month, Regina continued, taking a sip of tea as if she was tasting a rare wine. But there is a small detail. Marina already felt the knot in the stomach. My son insists that I sell this apartment. Selling it, repeated Regina, as if the idea was a personal insult. But why? Property only values. It was then that she leaned forward, her eyes shining with the malice of those who are about to reveal an infallible plan. You know, Marina, I thought of a perfect solution. For both of us. Marina frowned suspiciously. Don't you find this space a little tight to 6 people? The neighbor continued, with a theatrical sigh. Your daughter, her husband, 3 children, this is not life. My NHA man. Marina knew she was right, at least in that part. Since her daughter, Keisha, her husband, and the 3 grandchildren had moved there temporarily, or expected while solving problems with the mortgage, the routine became a daily puzzle of stacked bags, disputed bath hours, and shift dinners. But what did this have to do with Regina? I have a proposal, the neighbor announced, as if revealing the healing to all the evils in the world. We change apartment. You move to my three-bedroom new space, Riverview, luxury, and I get this one here. After all, alone. I don't need so much. Marina almost choked on tea. It was so absurd that, for a second, she thought it was a bad joke. Sorry, but what? Regina sighed, as if explaining something obvious to a stubborn child. It's simple. You get a larger, better apartment, and I get this one, which is more than enough for me. Everyone wins. Marina blinked, trying to sue. Regina Arcadievna, you said the apartment yourself was a gift from your child. That is, technically, it's not yours. The neighbor made a gesture with her hand, as if an annoying fly away. Bureaucracy. He gave me. Soon it's mine to do whatever he wants. And I want to help you. Marina felt the blood pressure rise. Are you proposing to change a luxury apartment, which is not even yours, for my modest 2-bedroom house in a building without elevator? Regina smiled, radiant. Exactly. You need more than me. I'm a simple woman. I know how to live with little. Marina stared at her, trying to decide whether it was pure or delirium cynicism. And your child knows this exchange? What do he need to know? Regina said, as if the question was ridiculous. This is between me and you. He gave me the apartment. End point. Marina held the tip of the table, feeling that patience was about to run out. Legally, it doesn't work that way. You can't have a good that is not in your name. Regina's smile disappeared, replaced by a grimace of irritation. What do you understand? From loss? My son bought for me. That is enough. Marina took a deep breath. It's not enough. And frankly, I can't accept it. It's not fair or cool. Regina got up from a leap, her eyes sparkling. You're jealous. You can't stand to see my happiness. Marina kept her calm, though inside she was boiling. Regina Arkadievna, I'm really happy for you. But that doesn't change the fact that your proposal is unacceptable. Cut the neighbor, sarcastic. I try to help your family, and do you pay me in gratitude? Before Marina could answer, the door opened. He was Constant, a son of 16, followed by Alice, 14. Mom, we'd arrived, Alice announced, until she saw Regina's expression and shut her mouth. What is happening here? Asked Constant, already suspicious. Regina stared at them with disdain. Her mother is refusing a golden opportunity. I offered her my new apartment, and she's just a case. What apartment? Asked Alice, confused, looking at Marina. Regina Arkadievna. In Lazuli, explained Marina, tired. But the problem is that, wow, that's amazing. Alice interrupted, her eyes shining. There is a pool there, Jim, and is closer to my school. Regina crossed her arms, triumphant. They saw. Young people understand the advantage. Marina lifted her hand, asking for silence. Children, listen. Regina Arkadievna cannot simply give us an apartment that technically belongs to her son. We have no right on him. Constant frown, always fast to capture the weaknesses of an argument. That is, you want us to move to a place that is not ours, without a contract. Nothing. What if your child decides to put us out of night to the day? Regina paled, but recovered fast. He wouldn't do that. I'm his mother. What if if something happens to you? He insisted, Constant, relentless. We stay on the street. Regina got red with anger. Nothing will happen. I will live more than all of you. Marina looked at her son proudly. He was only 16 years old, but already understood more responsibility than that woman in her 60. Regina Arkadievna, said Marina firmly, I think you better talk to your child before making proposals like this. If he agrees in writing, then we can argue. The neighbor got up, trembling with indignation. I don't need anyone's permission. My word is law. Without waiting for an answer, she turned and marched to the door, leaving behind a loaded silence. When the door knocked, Alice broke the ice. Mom, is she serious? Marina sighed, running her hand over her face. Unfortunately, yes. Constant laughed, dryly. At least we had fun. Marina smiled, despite everything. Fun is little, but one thing is certain, nobody takes us from seriously. And while the smell of tea still hanged in the air, she knew that, in the end, the real luxury was not an apartment overlooking the river. It was to have a family that saw beyond the empty promises. Marina looked at her son. Despite his young age, he reasoned with clarity that many adults would envy. Regina Arkadievna, she said, with a calm that cut as a sharp blade, I value her generous offer, but we can't accept it. It would be irresponsible on our part. The neighbor raised her eyebrows, and her voice gained a metallic tone. That is, are they refusing? Yes, we are refusing, said Marina, without hesitation. And please, we will end this subject. Regina Arkadievna poured, as if the simple idea of refusing her suffocating. How do you dare? Her scream echoed through the hall. I'm offering paradise, and you are offering that we illegally occupy someone else's property. Marina cut. Patience exhausted like sand between the fingers. This is not paradise. It's a shortcut for problems, and I demand you to respect our decision. The cup of tea toppled with a dry crack when Regina Arkadievna rose by blow, the dark liquid staining the tablecloth like a gilt stain. They will regret, he said, his eyes sparkling. I will tell all the neighbors as they are ungrateful. Everyone will know. She marched toward the door, but stopped in the jail, turning her body with the poisonous elegance of the snake about to attack. They will still be crawled over to me, begging for help. The door knocked so hard that the dishes in the closet trembled like storm leaves. A stunned silence stopped in the apartment. Wow, whistled Costa after a long time. Did she really think we would fall for it? It looks like yes, Marina sighed, wiping the spilled tea with a cloth. Regina Arkadievna has always lived in her own world. A pause. What if we had accepted? Alice risked, looking at the floor. The apartment is good, and in a month we would be on the street when her son called the police, said Costa crudely. No chance. No, thank you, said Marina firmly. Right, approved Keisha, crossing her arms. Dignity never sells for a beautiful view. No good the offer is. She didn't know, but that wouldn't be the last battle. In the following days, Regina Arkadievna declared open war to the Klima family. First, the complaints came by noise. Every night, as soon as Keisha and Andrei came back from work and the kids started playing, the neighbor beat the roof with a broom like a war drum. When this had no effect, he started to call the police. Look, said official Igor Sergeyevich to Marina, for the third time that week, rubbing the back of his neck with tiredness. I understand that children are children, but I can't contain a little of the activity after 9. They already sleep at 9, said Marina, exasperated. Regina Arkadievna complains until they go to the bathroom. The policeman shook his head. Solidarity. I know, she's special, but the law is clear. Noise after 11 can't. There is no noise here after the 11, Marina countered, the eyes sparkling. After 9, this house becomes a convent. My daughter-in-law, my son-in-law, and I move like shadows. Come check it out. And so it was done. The officer began to appear at nights, confirmed the absolute silence, and left shaking his head, as if he couldn't believe anyone could be so relentless. But Regina Arkadievna didn't give up. She climbed the conflict. One morning, Marina found a bucket of trash turned right in front of her door. The contents spread across the hall, exuding a smell that made her stomach turn. It was her, Costa murmured, helping her mother clean, the disgust on her face. Do not accuse without evidence, warned Marina, although she knew, in the background, that there was no other explanation. The next day, a dead rat appeared inside the mailbox, and in the other, oil spilled at the entrance of the apartment made Andrei slip and twist his back as he left for work. This has passed the boundary, he grunted, writing his Keisha spent ointment on her back. We need to do something. What? Asked Marina, her hands open in a gesture of helplessness. We have no proof that it was her, and even if we had, what would be good? Let's install a camera, proposed Kostya, determined. I have an old cell phone. You can turn it into a surveillance system. They did exactly that. They set the device on the door, adjusting the angle to capture the entire corridor, and waited. It didn't take long. The next morning, the video showed Regina Arkadievna at 4 in the morning, approaching sneaky from the Klimov door with a can of paint and a brush. In slow and meticulous movements, she wrote a word in the wood. Ungrateful. What a witch. Keisha exploded when she saw the recording. Mom, let's take this to the officer. Wait, said Marina, a cold smile bending her lips. I have a better idea. She copied the video to a pen drive and went to the neighboring apartment. Regina Arkadievna opened the door with a grimace, as if the simple smell of Marina bothered her. What do you want? He asked cold. Talk, said Marina. Serena, can I come in? The neighbor's reluctance was almost palpable, but she retreated, allowing Marina to enter the apartment. The contrast was grotesque, the ostentatious luxury of the furniture, the paintings on golden frames, the crystal objects that shone like trophies. Marina could not avoid ironic thinking, how strange to change all this to a common two-bedroom apartment, even if it was temporary. I came to show something, she said, pulling her cell phone. On squeezing play, the video started running. Regina Arkadievna's face paled. This is montage, he stammered. You armed everything. Regina Arkadievna, said Marina, tired of the farce. Stop. I can take this video to the officer right now. Or she paused, calculated. I can send it to your son. The neighbor froze. To my son? Why? Well, Marina continued, as if explaining something obvious to a child. He gave him this beautiful apartment, and here you are, practicing vandalism at night. I think he would be interested in knowing how he occupies his time. Regina Arkadievna's face was even pale, almost gray. You wouldn't dare. No? Marina tilted her head as she pondered. I have your number. It's just a click to send the video, and not stop there. I have recordings of the noise of the broom at 3 in the morning, the trash thrown on our door, the rata in the mailbox. She let the threat to turn in the air. Enough, shouted the neighbor, the voice breaking. What do you want? That leaves us in peace, Marina said, firmly like rock. No complaint for noise, no vandalism, no threat. Let's live like normal neighbors. A head nod in the hallway, mutual respect, and each in yours. Regina Arkadievna's eyes burned with hatred, but she nodded, her lips pressed on a thin line. Great. Marina smiled without a shred of heat. I'm glad we understood ourselves. She was already coming out when the neighbor's voice stopped her, loaded with poison. They will still regret having refused my help. I just wanted to help, and you. Marina looked over her shoulder, and her smile was now sharp. Your help could lead us to a dump and a court case. If you really want to help Regina Arkadievna, then leave us in peace. That's all we ask. She left, closing the door with a soft click, as if she seals a deal. Upon returning home, he found the family together. Even Keisha and Andre had returned earlier from work, eager for news. So, asked Keisha, impatient. She confessed, said Marina, keeping her cell phone. It didn't deny it when you saw the video. Do you think it's going to stop? Asked Costa, suspiciously. Marina looked at each one of them, her eyes shining with a determination that left no room for doubt. If you don't stop, she left the phrase in the air, but everyone knew what would come next. She won't want to test. It really looks like a miracle, Andre replied, passing her fingers through the newly hired wall of the room that would be little Misha. And the amazing thing is that there are no pranks. The contract is clean, the rates are fair, and the Samanyan Bank has a solid reputation. Keisha was still looking out the window where the afternoon sun illuminated the playground that would be a few steps from her future apartment. Mom, do you think he did it just for Blaine, or is there anything else? Marina smiled, crossing her arms. No matter what reason, daughter, sometimes life surprises us with people who choose to fix what was broken even if they didn't break. She paused, observing her daughter's expression. But if you want to know my theory, I think he saw something that reminded him of what could have been with his mother. A chance to do differently. Andre nodded, thoughtful. Or maybe just want to prevent the old lady from suing him for the abandonment of incapable. After all, with the story of medicine cynic as always, laughed Keisha, poking him with her elbow. But admit, without the stubbornness of the Arkadevna Regina, we would never have known her millionaire son. Who would say that a war because of a poorly isolated door would end with us winning this here? She gestured to the apartment, still empty, but already full of possibilities. Marina looked at the floor, where the broker had left the keys on the kitchen marble table. It's not just the apartment, Detka dear, it's peace. 2 weeks without noise at 3 in the morning, without curses in the hallway, without the feeling that our life became a terror reality show. She took the keys, feeling her weight on her palm. Sometimes the universe has strange ways to remind us that it is worth resisting. Keisha sighed, leaning her forehead on the window glass. I just hope the Arkadevna Regina is really well. I don't want her to suffer, I just want her to stop. She's in good hands now, said Marina firmly. And we too. Andre took the keys from his mother-in-law's hand, spinning them between his fingers. So is that end of the soap opera? Marina laughed low, a hot, triumphant sound. No, Sinak's son-in-law. That's just the beginning. She pointed to the gateway, where the name Klemov was already recorded on the bright metal plate. Now, the story we are going to write is ours, without interference, no blackmailing, God willing, no more psychopathic neighbors. Keisha laughed, wiping a discreet tear. Promises you will tell you this history for grandchildren, with all the lurid details. Of course, Marina replied, hugging her daughter by the shoulders, but only when they are old, enough to enjoy a good lesson. Never underestimate a Russian mother when what is at stake is her family. And while the three came out of the apartment now doused, the sun was over the neighborhood, painting the windows of the old home in Lazarny Barrack. Inside, in the newly won apartment of Regina Arkadevna, a cleaning team removed the last traces of paint from the door. There were no more words of hatred, no threats, no shadows of the past. Just the silence. And for the first time in months, you sounded like victory thanks to your mother. Andre smiled as the car ripped off. And strangely, also the Arkadevna Regina. I'll have to send a bouquet of flowers to her, laughed at Keisha, sarcastic, for trying to steal us the apartment. I doubt she appreciates, Andre countered, and the two laughed, because now even that sounded like a joke of fate. 5 years passed. Marina was on the porch of her apartment, letting the summer's hot breeze caress her face. Much had changed since then. Keisha and the family were already installed in her own home, almost settled, thanks to Andre's unexpected promotion. Kostya had left for the university in another city, while Alyssa, about to finish high school, designed low plants in each piece of paper she found, dreaming of architectural faculties. Regina Arkadevna was still crossing with Marina in the supermarket or in the park. A nod, a good morning protocol. Nothing more, nothing less. Already Vitali, on the contrary, had become almost a friend of the Klemov. He often appeared whenever he visited his mother, and even helped Kostya with the university documents. Who would say that all that madness would end like this? Marina thought, smiling when she remembered the episode of the apartment. Sometimes life had a wicked sense of humor, or perhaps just a wisdom that humans were slow to understand. Until, one day in the park, she spotted Regina Arkadevna sitting on a bench, her hands crossed over the bag. Marina took a deep breath. It was time. How are you? He asked, approaching with caution. The other woman's eyes narrowed, suspicious. Well, thank you. And you, I can't complain either. Marina hesitated, but continued. Actually, I wanted to thank you. To thank? Regina Arkadievna arched an incredulous eyebrow. Why, because in the end everything worked out. Marina smiled. If it wasn't for your unusual plan, we would never have known Vitali. My daughter would not have gotten the apartment in such good conditions. Even the friendship that came up later for a long moment, Regina Arkadievna remained silent. Then, to Marina's surprise, a shy smile came up on her lips. You know, he murmured, almost embarrassed. I never wanted to change apartment, how I just wanted to approach. The confession came out low, almost swallowed. Vitali barely visits me, and I was always difficult with the neighbors. It was alone. She shrugged. I didn't know how to do it differently. So I invented that story. Marina stared at her, astonished. All that the threats, the paint on the door, the drama, had it been just a clumsy way to ask for attention. You could have just knocked on my door, he said without a grudge. No blackmail, no ultimatums. I don't know how to do that. Regina Arkadievna lowered her eyes. I never knew. I always act first. I think later. Marina watched the woman in front of her, the one who, for months, had been her enemy. Now, however, he saw only a fragile person attached to his own limitations. While he said, extending his hand on a spontaneous gesture, it's never too late to learn. How about coming to have tea at my house on Saturday? Regina's eyes of Arkadievna widened. Serious. Testes of everything I did serious. Marina nodded. Life is too short to keep resentment. And when? The following Saturday. A shy touch sounded at her door. Marina opened to find Regina Arkadievna with a box of candy in her hands, the same ones that, years earlier, she had never sworn to prove again. But now, as he invited her in, he could only think about how the most absurd things could sometimes weave the most unexpected strands of fate. Even when it all started with a sentence like, let's change apartment. You get mine with 3 bedrooms, and I change to yours to live with your daughter, son-in-law, and the 3 grandchildren. It had been necessary to remember that stubborn where it was his place. But in the end, even that had served for something.